Welcome to this episode of What's Happening Waupaca. My name is Joni. Today, and I'm going to keep it really simple to start with, today we are talking about computers. And we're going to get a little bit more in depth than that. This isn't the desktop that I play games on. I don't think that we're talking about today. But I want to introduce our panel and what they do. I'm going to start over here with Chris Jenke, who is the library media specialist. Now you work with the Waupaca Learning Center and the chain and those schools. Chris, what do you do for the school system?
I teach library skills, literacy, and we delve into technology, problem solving, thinking, working together.
So you teach classes?
I do.
That is kind of cool, a problem solving class.
It's more of the literacy, but within that, we do some thinking, higher level thinking, and how would we solve this problem if we had confronted with what the characters are doing.
That's neat. I like that. Next we have Crystal Vida, who also works for the Waupaca Learning Center and that group of schools. You're the technology integration specialist.
I am.
And that is defined as?
So I help teachers use technology with their kids. Whenever somebody has a great idea or I have a great idea, we merge it in with things that they're already doing in their classroom, and we figure out how we can make the technology accomplish whatever it is they want.
Oh, that sounds really fun.
I got to hear some examples of that later on.
I know, I know.
That intrigues me. That makes learning more fun.
It does, and it does. To have a team of people behind the scenes saying, how do we work together to make this work, always improves the situation, which I'll bet you do a lot of here. This is Sue Abrahamson. She is, I've been teasing her, she is the children's librarian here at the Waupaca Library.
Yes.
We've called you all kinds of names.
Yes.
Nice names.
And I answer usually to all of them.
So as a children's librarian, what encapsulates your job?
Well, you know, it's all about, as Chris said, it's all about literacy. And what people don't understand is that there's all different kinds of literacy. There's the literacy of written word on a page, which is traditionally what people think about when they have literacy, when they talk literacy. But there's financial literacy, there's digital literacy, there's all different kinds of literacy. And the library is responsible for promoting all of those. And so my experience with the topic of computers is that we need to stay on top of the game, because we need to make sure that people know that the public library is the place to go for out of school day learning if they have kids, out of work day learning if they're an adult and in the workforce, and where they can go to learn new skills that might be employable.
And we all need to learn that the library isn't just about racks of books.
Exactly.
You know, which I think is pretty important. And you walk into the library upstairs, and what do you see? Racks of books.
Well, that's still important.
It is still very important, but I think it's more. We also have Ezra Kajeski here. You work at the Waupaca Foundry, and you are the .NET developer.
Yep.
What do you do?
So I make custom web applications, so different things that like some of our vendors could log into and interact with, like say like forklift applications, inventory applications like that. I do custom desktop applications as well as Windows services.
So you do things for because the Foundry is huge, so you do things for their computers that makes their jobs easier in addition to other stuff. So it's a really interesting panel now. Sue, I'm going to come back to you for just a minute, because I'm sitting here, I'm at an age where computers didn't exist when I was a kid.
Me either.
And you are that age too.
Yep.
So what you said to me just a few minutes ago about computers really resonated. So what was that?
You
talked about how computers are here to
that's
stay.
Right. That's right.
And it's a science.
That's right. And you know, we're carrying computers in our pockets called our phones. We bank with computers. We go to the grocery store and everything is checked out. You know, we have self-checkout, we have RFID tags, we have all different kinds of acronyms we could throw out there, and people will be like, oh, where's the alphabet soup of this acronym, you know? But the trick is to understand that no matter where you go in the society, technology is enhancing our world. And some people don't like it, and some people do. I think if they understand it and they learn not to be afraid of it, they will love it, because you can't go backwards. I just had my knee replaced in September. It was a robotic surgery. It took 20 minutes
Wow.
Oh my
to
goodness.
replace my knee, and it was amazing. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't have to worry if the doctor had a good night's sleep, because the robot.
They don't sleep.
Well, don't tell me that now. But you know what I'm saying is that it's in medicine, it's in retail, it's in industry. Ezra will tell you that almost everything at the foundry is computerized. All your
Yep.
machines,
Every machine, we got robotics. You can't get away from it.
right?
So we talk about, or we're going to talk about computational thinking. Is that really what this is about? Is computers, and is computational thinking, because somebody needs to define it for me, is computational thinking about understanding computers, accepting them in our lives?
I don't know that it's only about understanding and accepting computers. I think it's something that's applicable to all areas of life. Any problem that you have, you can use computational thinking to compute a solution, whether it's on a computer or whether it is something stuck in something. Like, how are you going to come up with a solution, and how are you going to solve the problem?
Okay, so this leads me to something which is really, really interesting, because it used to be many years ago that it was all about math. How do we make an algebraic equation to solve the problem, right? And they solve problems of the universe that way, and they still do. So what you're saying is computational thinking is much the same, just on a different level?
Yep, you could do it with computers. You could do it with a stack of materials. We do it all the time at school. We give kids a problem, and we give them a bin, and we say, solve the problem with things in this bin, or solve the problem by writing a computer program. There's lots of different ways. It doesn't just apply to computers. It's everywhere.
Well, every time you follow a recipe, you're doing computational thinking.
Right.
Because what you're doing is you're saying, okay, my problem is the cookie jar is empty. So now I have to figure out what I have to do to put the cookies. So I have to, what's the first step? You take the big problem, you break it down into smaller steps. And that's every child going through our school system needs to have that basic understanding of, I can solve a problem by breaking a big problem down into smaller steps. And then you get into when you get into the computer part of it, then it's giving directions. I need to give a direction to either another person or a machine to have them do this work for me. And that's basically what computational, in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are
Yep.
the experts, but
I think it even has like an agile approach to it too. So like once you end up with the solution, you end up going into like a testing phase. Like, did what I end up coming up with work? And then you kind of analyze the final product when you have it. And then you just kind of go back around in a circle like, okay, that didn't work. What should I try next? And just keep doing the problem solving circle.
and that's really important too, because if nothing works the first time, I don't think Einstein invented anything the first time. Edison didn't invent anything the first time. Not giving up and making sure that you keep working to.
Yeah, I think it was Einstein that said, I was wrong 1,000 times before I was right, or something along those lines.
Exactly.
It's a trial and error thing. So is the next question that we have here is, coding illiteracy, is that important? So let's start over again. We've got computational thinking, which is essentially reasoning. Let's reason out a problem, right, and use the tools at our disposal to solve it. So how does that go into coding, Ezra?
I would say that coding is definitely an important literacy to have. I think it's more so on the problem solving side of it that you should put a focus, because there's so many more problems you can solve besides just using computers. But the computers is just an extended tool to make life easier, so you can automate things more often and have something that someone can interact with.
Okay, all right. Now, do you agree with that, Chris, coming at it from, because you're working with kids,
Young
of course,
kids.
young
This is working
kids.
with like first and second graders. usually.
Kindergarten. all the way up.
So is that, I mean, do you agree with what he's saying, is that understanding the coding is as important?
I believe it is, because it, again, like Ezra said, it's not just like how to code a computer, it's really how can you problem solve. That's really what coding is. If I do this, then this will happen. Well, I don't want that to happen. So if I do this, then this will happen. Oh, that's good. And then you just continue on. Either you get it right or you get it wrong. If you get it right, you may go back and say, I could do that better. So let me reassess what I did. Maybe in this step, I can make it better, and now I have it, okay, right up here, this is my good solution up here. That's
So
the way
part of it, I think part of it is perseverance. Kids don't want to persevere. They want answers given to them. That's how we were raised. We sat in a classroom and somebody talked to us, and I think that's what kids want. They want someone to give them the answers. So part of this is teaching them to persevere to find their own answers.
So
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
so it's,
Yep.
how do
I
you,
like that.
how do you spell this word when a teacher says, I don't know, look it up in a dictionary, right?
Right.
Same kind
thing.
of, you had to have a teacher say that to you.
Oh, teacher said a lot of things. To
I got tired.
I was one of those, I was a good C student, let me tell you. But I'll tell you, the love of learning is what, you know, whatever your grades are is one thing, but the fact that you want to keep learning.
Right.
To be where I am in my career right now and still wanting to learn, that's what we want kids. That's what we want our young people. That's what you want employees at the foundry to do. Always want to you know.
So why is it important, you're a foundry with adult employees and people with college educations in the offices, and you're working with kindergartners and little kids, and you work with
different ages.
young kids and little older kids. So why is working together important?
You mean like working, like collaborating between community and school, or?
Collaborating or supporting each other? I mean, if I'm getting this right, you are trying and working toward teaching kids how to think so that the foundry has good employees that
Right.
can learn, right?
And that maybe somewhere down the road, companies looking to relocate into our area will know that they've got a workforce
Yeah.
that's trained with the skills they need to be successful.
That's cool. And that's a great place to say. We're going to take a short break and be right back. You are watching What's Happening in Waupaca.
Welcome to the Waupaca Area Public Library. At our library, we have programs for all ages, starting at birth to adult and beyond. In our children's department, your children may attend Children's Story Time, or for your really young child, we have Baby Garden. The teen room is for teens from grade 6 through high school, and we provide lots of services and programs in that room as well. We're not just about books. We have DVDs, we have music, we have puzzles, and we have lots of space for community activities. We have meeting rooms for public use, and our Winchester Academy of Waupaca uses our meeting rooms almost every Monday night. Every month, the exhibit room hosts a fun and interactive or educational exhibit. The exhibits are free, open to the public, and geared towards all ages. They're open during regular library hours. You can enter our building and use our internet computers, or you can bring your own device and use our free Wi-Fi. Our friendly staff is available to assist you with all of your information needs at the information desk or at the main desk. There is staff in every department during our open hours. One of our newest services is ebooks and downloadable audiobooks. You can access them through InfoSoup, our online catalog. Our catalog has materials from all 50 libraries in our consortium, and you can reach our catalog at infosoup.org from any internet computer. The library has plenty of great books, but so much more to offer. So stop down at your Waupaca library today.
Welcome back to What's Happening in Waupaca. I am Joni, and we are talking about computational thinking is what we did. Now we're going to go into makerspaces, which I'm learning a lot here, and I kind of like it because I like to learn, like
It's a
you, Sue.
buzzword. Makerspace is a buzzword,
Okay.
and lots
so,
of people are confused about it.
Right.
Okay.
Don't feel bad about it. You should never feel bad if you don't know something, but you could always ask, and that's the important thing.
You know what? I think that's one of the most important lessons I've ever learned in my life is ask.
That's right, because if you don't ask, you
Instead
don't
of,
know.
well, not only that, but you make a whole lot more mistakes if you're not willing to ask somebody something that you don't, because I don't know what I don't know,
Right.
which is actually a pretty cool philosophy. But we're off topic. Chris, define makerspace for me. Tell me what it is.
Well, makerspace, let me just tell you what happens there. It's not always a place. But they can go, they meaning students, adults, whatever, they go to create, tinker, question, engineer, build, create. They see a problem, or they're just, I would like to create this. And then they create it, and they have to, again, evaluate what they've done. Does it work? Doesn't it work? When they're little people, it's our job to go around and give them some questions. How could you make that stand up instead of fall over, that tower? Why does that bridge not work?
Okay, so Sue said that makerspace is a buzzword, and that sometimes it's a physical space, but sometimes it isn't. You said Ezra when we were at break. So I'm having a tough time. I mean, I imagine this little tiny white room that you go into, that you
And
try
some
to.
look that way.
Well, that's
do.
my room. It's tiny, tiny little white room where kids go and they grab what they want to do and they do it. We've got all kinds of things. We've got building things. We've got circuitry. We've got robotics. We've got
3D pens,
3D pens. Yeah.
sewing machines.
Sewing machines. It's a lot of stuff.
So
It
is makerspace then more of a thing you do,
Yes.
Ezra?
Yes.
Well,
Somebody?
yeah, definitely.
Well, tell me how makerspace works, because I can imagine how it works into youth and teaching. How does it work into something like the Foundry?
And the Foundry might not benefit us so much, but as far as like other businesses, someone might pitch the idea of like say, hey, I want to make a prosthetic arm to help someone out. And you could have someone like physically go and get a team of people together in an area and try to like physically build this. Or you might have like software engineers that might be online, and you can have like online repositories using GitHub, which is just an open source platform where a lot of people can share code, pull it down, and just keep doing updates as a community.
Okay.
And that Ezra brings up a really good point. The maker space is a community, and that's the key, is that people are willing to share ideas, share how I made something, you know. Somebody, if you're at all familiar with the internet and Pinterest, sharing
Right.
ideas on Pinterest is like a makerspace community, because you can get all different kinds of ideas on how to do something, and you can click on the ones you like and it'll give you directions on how to do it. So once again, we talk about that computational thinking, but it's also more than that, in that it's sharing of ideas. We have an exhibit room space which was designed in the library to be a display area for art. Now we see what people want. Sure, they want to come and see art, but they also want to come and do, and they want to come and make things. And so more and more our programming for all ages has a creative component to it.
So if we were going to put that into something that I can understand, you know, let's pretend that I'm very simple, which when it comes to technology, I really am, because I'm one of those people that likes the technology that I like and that fits well in my life. And I pick up my car that way. There's a couple of things that I like about that technology, and I don't like others. So I'm trying to broaden that. But if we put makerspace into a simple kind of definition, it's a group where you go, or a place where you go, like an interactive science museum.
Kind of.
Would that be like
Yeah.
a makerspace? I mean,
Right.
right? Because
Yeah,
they have
exactly.
groups of people
Exactly.
that, and Pinterest is like that. Very much.
So let me give you a hardcore example. Early on in our makerspace at the public library, someone got the great idea of taking a button-down shirt, similar to the one I'm wearing, and making an apron out of it. And we invited people to come in, bring a button-down shirt, and make an apron out of it. And it was intriguing to so many people that we had about 75 people come.
Wow.
And we had people with sewing machines in the community come in, and they shared their technology. Some people had never sewed before, you know. And so what did we do? We helped them repurpose something that they had into something really cool. And they did it at the library, and they learned new skills, and they followed directions, and they made something. It's a creative space.
Which really is, when you talk about makerspace being a buzzword, that's something that's been going on for
Yes.
centuries.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way grandmas taught moms how to cook,
Or can.
or can, or butcher chickens, or whatever else
Yep.
needed, you know,
Right.
needed to be
Now,
done.
take that into a more technical, there are some libraries in Waupaca County that have is it Arduino?
Arduino.
Arduino, which is like a circuitry.
Yep, where you can do some programming. I don't know a lot about it. Ezra?
So something like an Adreno controller, you might have something like a little Raspberry Pi, which is a really, really tiny computer that you can just like run a program on. So like I had a college professor that ended up making, he used an Adreno controller and got a whole bunch of LED lights and made a coffee table that you could play games by setting glasses down on it.
Fun!
So
It
it's,
does sound like, now that's an adult kind of sitting
Right.
around, come over for a cup of coffee and start moving somebody's.
Just the terminology of some of this equipment, makey. You know, at the library, we take potatoes and we play whack-a-mole with the potatoes and the makey-makeys, which is just plain circuitry. And we're teaching kids how to make circuits so that something works. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't work, they have to, as Chris said, problem solve why it's not working. And we're making this happen.
So we are talking about, we are talking about teaching people, whether it's adults that don't have a whole lot of, and there are people at the Foundry, I know there are people at the Foundry that don't have a whole lot of computer skills because they've either been working out in the shops forever, or they're a little bit older, or have never had any interest in it. So it's really about teaching us the computer side of what we have been taught earlier in life as far as trying to solve a problem.
Well, as a matter of fact, if you really think about how technology has changed in the last few years, there are going to be jobs out there that we're trying to train our kindergartners about concerning jobs that aren't even created yet.
They don't exist. Yeah.
Right. So we
Uh-huh.
really, if they can look at something, figure out the problem, and they can do that problem solving and get a solution, they can use that anywhere and any time.
And that's what we're going to talk about in the next segment is where are kids headed? If they learn this kind of stuff, what are they going to be doing? What kind of jobs are they going to be doing? So we're going to take a short little break here, and we're going to come back in a minute, and we are going to talk about how computational thinking and maker spaces get us ready for good jobs, which we all want, right? So we'll be right back. This is What's Happening in Waupaca.
When a tornado watch is issued, keep an eye on the sky. There are times you won't hear a warning, so watch for tornado warning signs. Before a tornado hits, the wind may die down and the air may become very still. A tornado can be invisible in a dark or greenish sky, a wall cloud, large hail, or a cloud of dust or debris. It's also possible for a tornado to be quite visible. Tornadoes often occur in the leading or tail end of a storm when the skies seem blue and safe. Don't assume you're safe just because the rain has stopped. Now is the time for you to practice your family shelter plan. Prepare your emergency supply and food kit, and plan on how your family will stay in touch if you're separated. Be a good neighbor and make sure others in your community are prepared. And don't forget about your pets. Go to readywisconsin.wi.gov to learn more about getting a kit, making a plan, and staying informed.
Welcome back to this episode of What's Happening in Waupaca. I am Joni. Today we are talking with Chris Jenke. We're talking with Crystal Vita, Sue Abrahamson, and Ezra Kajeski. I'll get it. You know, I grew up a Johnson, so, you know, there's some things I just don't grasp. But anyway, we're going to talk about, we've been talking about computers, computer knowledge, computer problem solving, computational thinking, and we have been talking about makerspace. Now I want to talk about how it's going to affect us going into the future. And Crystal, you brought along some statistics.
Yep.
I want you to share with us.
So in 2015, there were about 8,000 computer jobs, but only 1,000 or less college graduates to fill those jobs. So we're not producing enough people to fill the jobs that we have available, and that's just in Wisconsin. Stats are like that all over the U.S. But
So there's tech colleges that teach computer programs that will also, this isn't just college education jobs, computer jobs that are needed?
these are computer science jobs. So it could be anything from the people who problem solve the computing, the people who program, the people who analyze, the people who do the robotics, all of those.
So there's commercials on TV. There's a new one about a gal who loses a job, and we were just talking about this. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's animated. This gal works on a machine in a factory, and she watches robots taking over the other stations. Have you seen that?
No,
Where
but-
there are other people. And then she loses her job. She gets her pink slip, and she goes home, and she has these two little kids, and she looks at this poster that says, "We can do it." It was a woman's poster back from World War II. That's irrelevant. But then she writes IT on there. So she goes to school online. She gets her IT degree, and it changes. And what we were kind of thinking is when people think about robotics that are not very, very familiar with it, they think about robots taking people's jobs, which was exactly what this commercial was about. Now, when you go to school and learn something new like IT, because I think that IT is seen as something narrow when it really is a very wide field. So why don't you give me some examples, Ezra, of some different kinds of things that I could do if I wanted to go into IT?
So if you're really interested in art, you could go on to be a graphic designer. You could end up going the web development route. So you could be making websites for companies. If you're interested in marketing and really having like a social outreach, so you could do social media, like different pamphlet designs. You might end up going to like search engine optimization or advertisements for a company. You could go like the programming route and actually make like desktop applications or software for other users to have. And then another really big field is data analytics. So that would be towards like your machine learning, trying to process like, if I have 1 million records, what's the way I can make it faster for a company? You could process like how often are people clocking into work? Is there a time where people are doing nothing? Just different things like that.
So part of IT is about taking jobs that we used to see. You know, graphic designers used to be artists, or they used to be architects that did everything by hand with rulers, right? And now it's considered an IT field because they're doing that same work, but they're doing it with a computer.
Yep, everything went digital.
Okay, all right. So we have Ezra over here that's in here. It's the present. What you do is what is available now. We talked a little bit about what is happening with how fast jobs are growing and changing. So Sue, why don't you tell us a little bit about what are kids in for jobs when they get to be an adult?
That's a very good question. I was going to comment on Crystal's fact. I mean, she gave statistics for Wisconsin, and I think a lot of people think all the tech jobs are in California, Silicon Valley, you know. Baloney, 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 because there are a lot of jobs in Wisconsin and all over every state. Now, what are people in for? What are, I guess, I'm not sure your question.
Because part of what we were talking about was, what is the job market going to look like when the students we're teaching are adults?
What are they going to do?
And our answer was, we have no idea.
Yeah.
If we look even like at the cell phone, how much, it took us a while to get to, what's in our hand, then it got really tiny, and then it got really big. And it just seems like it's I don't want to say exponentially, but it's faster and faster and faster how things are changing.
And it is exponential growth. They say what took 100 years, the next time took 50, the next time took 25. Well, now we're not talking about years or months anymore.
Right.
We're literally talking about days or hours.
And the kids that Crystal and Chris work with, these kids are going to come up with whole new ideas. There's this wonderful TED Talk that I recently listened to. A web developer from Finland worked with a group of 6-year-olds, and she gave them each an on-off button. You know, that little circle with the line on it. And she gave them that sticker, and she says, "Where would you put this?" And all those 6-year-olds had a very different idea of where they would put that on-off button. And then she asked them, "Well, when you push that button, what would that thing do?" You know, so it's us asking the question, that giving those young people the permission to be very creative and to think outside the box, because we don't know where it's going to go, and they're the ones that are going to lead us. Those young people are going to be the ones setting the pace, and we just have to keep up. Hang on.
We also have to make sure they know we don't have all the answers. Like, sometimes they're the ones who have the answers. And that's the really amazing part. I don't know everything. I learned so much from them.
And oftentimes, especially at the library, the kids will come from school, and Crystal and Chris will have taught them something, and I'll just go, show me how that works.
Yep.
And you know what? A boost in that student's self-esteem to be able to teach either a parent, and that's what we see a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they'll play with a piece of technology at school, they'll know the library has it, and then they'll come and show mom and dad how that works. And so how amazing is that? And they're building this comfort level. I think a lot of it is that comfort level, that I'm not afraid of it. Our generation, Joni, is afraid of technology. We're afraid we're going to break something.
Because we didn't have it, and yet we did. Because we had tools that generations ago did not have.
Right.
You know, we just recently had that 30 inches of snow. And I'm sitting in my house, and I came up with this thing from the 1880s, 1880-81 snowstorm. They had 11 feet of snow. There was people, they had the train tracks cut out, and there was people that were like hanging on to the edges of the snowbank, and there's 3 feet below them and 4 feet above them. But here's what I was thinking, is that I am stuck in my house, but I have a John Deere tractor that I got stuck twice, but that's, I have a John Deere tractor, my house was warm, we had heat, I've got a barn for the animals, I've got many of the things that those people did not have. So that's the technology that we grew up with, but it was tools and it was machines. It wasn't thinking
And these are the
and
same
computers.
These are tools and machines. Ezra will tell you, he works with tools and machines. They're a different kind of tool, right, Ezra?
Yep. It's about understanding. So from an adult's perspective, I now understand a whole lot more and better than I did a half an hour ago. Thank you all very much. But it's about, if I were to try to encapsulate our conversation today, I would say that the focus of learning has become opening up your mind to possibilities you cannot even imagine, so that when you become an adult, you can take on jobs that did not exist and be successful because you're willing to learn and you're willing to explore.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Is that what we're talking about?
We're talking
That's it.
about that.
Definitely.
So now if I learned something,
And you did.
and that's cool, because if we're looking at technology from a scared point of view, like I don't understand how this little tiny thing can think like that, and it's not thinking the way I want it to think, is the biggest problem a lot of us have with technology, right? You're not doing what I want you to do. It's kind of nice to put it into a focus like that and to talk about how there has always been technology, there has always been growth. There was a round wheel invented at one time.
That's right.
So it's about accepting that, and it's about encouraging, even if I don't want to learn, it's about encouraging the younger people or other people to learn, so that, well, in my world, it's so that you can do that for me. But it's, I mean, that's what it's about, right?
Exactly. We want an educated workforce.
We do.
And we want it in Wisconsin.
We do.
And I like some of the things that the Waupaca School District is doing, and the library. I mean, that 3D printer thing, I gotta come see that one of these days. But I like that because what you're doing is you're teaching kids how to learn so that they can do things for the Foundry and for other companies that are around, that are local, and then you could stay with your family.
There's a lot of companies. Ezra's representing the local industry, but there's a lot of
many.
companies locally that have, you know, when you take your car to the garage, the first thing they do is they put it on a computer to analyze what the problem is.
That's exactly
You know,
right.
so-
Yeah, it is. They don't do that by
No, I don't
taking-
even look under the hood when I buy a
Just-
car anymore. I just go, yeah, okay, whatever.
Well, you don't understand.
it.
You don't understand
Exactly.
it.
Right.
you
And I don't
know?
have to understand it. That's the best part.
Right.
But I have to know that how to problem solve when something happens. And that's where that computational. So we go right back to that computational thinking as a literacy.
So instead of looking at computational thinking as something that I don't understand,
You get it.
all you're doing is reasoning, just solving a problem.
Solving problems.
Yep. Breaking big problems down into smaller, more manageable problems.
They're just calling it something else these
exactly.
days.
It's buzzwords.
My grandma would say, that was called this. She would say it just like that too. She was a feisty little German lady. She was pretty neat. That's another episode. You know what? Thank you so much for joining us today. Chris, really enjoyed meeting you. Crystal, enjoyed meeting you as well. I always like to see what the Waupaca school system is doing because I think they're very pro-learning, and I like to see that. Sue, I've known you for years. You've been on this show many times. It's always good to see you again.
Thanks.
It's been
Good
way
to see
too
you
long.
too, Joni.
And Ezra, it was nice to meet you too.
Thanks for having me.
And you're welcome. And to have a look at the entire picture. So thank you for joining us for What's Happening Waupaca. My name is Joni, and we'll see you next time.